happening and what has happened? How do you describe how hard?
A powerful storm system has been slamming the Pacific Northwest.
Take a look at all of that water and that family there trying to get to safety from their
3 rescues to RVs that are underwater, 3 adults.
Countertops, some of them can't swim and they're holding on for their own life.
Have you ever wondered if in just one night, floodwaters could take everything away? What time does humanity have left to wake up? When Western Washington was hit hard by rains and flooding, a man cried out in heartbreak watching his loyal dogs get swallowed by the rising water. A father risked his life pulling his 2 daughters from a car flooded right up to the roof. A family stood helpless, filming their whole house, still in one piece, getting swept away like it was nothing more than a toy. From up high, parking lots turned into muddy lakes. Down below, rescue teams waded through chest-deep water, racing against every inch the flood rose. Then, right in the middle of that raging current, a strange whirlpool appeared. A public bus filled with water, passengers in panic, crowding together for any spot to survive. 7 stories, 7 moments. But are they really separate? Or are they piecing together a message we're not ready to face? Do you think this is just bad weather or the final warning? Come with me as we dive in and uncover, layer by layer, the messages the Lord has hidden deep in this terribly fierce flood. So don't miss a single one, because right now, the curtain of truth is about to be pulled back. And to keep you from waiting too long, let's get started with the sudden break, the levee failure, and the water rising like the first wrath. This wasn't just an ordinary rainstorm, and it wasn't a typical winter flood in the Northwest. In the early morning hours, while most of Western Washington was still asleep, the temporary levee on the White River near Pacific City Park suddenly gave way, letting a furious rush of water pour into the neighborhoods. It happened fast, hard, and without warning, like a silent explosion ripping through the night, waking up an area that thought it was safe. Western Washington was already at its limit by then. For days, those atmospheric rivers, big streams of moisture in the sky, had been dumping heavy rain on the region, along with fast-melting snow from the mountains, soaking the ground completely. Rivers that were usually calm started swelling up, getting heavy and muddy. In Mount Vernon, the Skagit River rose to nearly 38 feet, forcing about 78,000 people in Skagit County to evacuate. The Green, Snoqualmie, and White Rivers all went over flood warnings at the same time, creating a network of rising water from different directions, like a deadly group closing in on the towns along the rivers. Wind howled through the bare trees. Rain whipped down on roofs and roads like lashes. The air felt thick and heavy, like something bad was coming. But in Pacific and Auburn, many families were still sleeping soundly, trusting that temporary levee would hold the water back. They didn't know that just a few hours later, that barrier would tear open, and the flood would come in faster than anyone expected. It happened in the middle of the night. The temporary barrier on the White River couldn't take the pressure from the rising water and broke, letting the angry flood surge through Pacific City Park and straight into the residential areas. Streets turned into rivers, yards became swamps, and lower homes were quickly swallowed up. Early reports said more than 200 homes were flooded, up to 6 feet deep. Hundreds of vehicles got stuck or swept away, and 600 to 1,000 people had to evacuate in a hurry in just a few short hours. The sounds from that night are something no one will forget. Sirens blared, tearing through the quiet. Red and blue lights flashed on the murky water. Rescue helicopters circled overhead, their rotors mixing with the rain and wind into a chaotic noise. The water rose so quick that many folks only had time to grab the clothes on their backs, leaving behind everything they'd built up over a lifetime. In the rush of breaking news, there were stories that hit you hard. Near the White River, one man stood there stunned, eyes red, telling how he helplessly watched his dogs get carried away by the current. The muddy water didn't give them a chance to swim back, and in a flash, his loyal friends were gone. For him, it wasn't just losing stuff. It was a direct blow to the heart, showing the cruel power of the flood. Revelation 8-7 once warned, "When the first trumpet sounded, hail and fire mixed with blood were poured down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up, a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up." Looking at the brownish-red muddy water churning through Pacific, many couldn't help thinking of that. Fire mixed with blood, not actual fire, but water burning away livelihoods, memories, and the sense of safety people had trusted. Authorities moved fast, giving out numbers and explanations. Weather experts said the short burst of rain far exceeded the usual amounts over years. Plus, the snowmelt sent a sudden surge into the rivers. The temporary barrier, only strengthened for milder scenarios, just couldn't hold anymore. Scientifically, it was a clear chain of causes, measurable with data and charts. But amid those cold facts, an uneasy feeling still hung over everything. Matthew 24-37-39 talks about the days of Noah. In the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the flood came and took them all away. The image of people in Pacific sleeping through the night, unaware of the water rising behind them, made many shiver at the scary similarity. Debate flared up quick. One side said this was the inevitable result of climate change, from humans messing too much with nature. The other pushed back, saying big rains and floods are cycles that have happened for centuries. In faith communities, the question weighed even heavier. Is this just a short trial, or a warning sign of something more serious coming? Many voices said bitterly that human pride has made us blind to the thin line between safety and disaster. Amid all the arguments, the reality stayed. The water had come in, homes were flooded, and thousands had to leave their places in the dark. Isaiah 24-19-20 says, "The earth reels like a drunkard. It sways like a hut in the wind." That picture seemed to match exactly what happened when the ground no longer felt solid and familiar things suddenly seemed so fragile. Right now, as someone sharing the news, we can only say one thing for sure: that break wasn't a small thing. Whether explained by science or seen through the eyes of faith, it's a strong reminder that human protections have limits, and time to get ready isn't always as much as we think. As the water kept rising and cries for help echoed in the night, a chilling feeling crept into every report. This was just the beginning, and if this really is the first trumpet, what lies ahead could be a lot worse. Heartbreaking losses, rescues, and tears in the raging floodwaters. Some voids just can't be filled. There are losses that money can't measure, cries that echo in the quiet, and moments that force us to pause and face how fragile life really is. In times like those, we all wonder, what's truly being taken away, and what are we being reminded of? Renton and Auburn woke up to a rare kind of chaos the morning after the flood. The Cedar and Green rivers had risen high, spilling over their usual banks and bending every boundary people had built. The ground was soaked from days of rain, weakening the levees so much that they looked ready to give way with just a little more pressure. In Snohomish County, more than 500 evacuations were reported, and the National Guard was called in during the emergency, with main roads cut off and many neighborhoods completely isolated. Warm rain kept pouring from thick clouds, melting mountain snow faster than expected. Huge amounts of water turned peaceful rivers into monsters, swallowing everything for miles around. Fields, parking lots, and low-lying homes became muddy seas where the line between land and river disappeared. Rescue operations went on in tough conditions. Inflatable boats and motorcrafts pushed into the swift currents, reaching houses where only the roofs stuck out above the water. Helicopters flew low, dropping lifelines to spots that seemed unreachable. Early reports said over 150 air rescues were carried out, each one a race against time and death. Amid the rush of news updates, the story of a father near the Green River quieted many people. His family's car was surrounded by floodwater, rising fast to the roof and turning it into a deadly trap. In that critical moment, he carried each of his little daughters on his back, wading through water about 6 feet deep, leaving the car that got swept away just minutes later. All three made it out by the skin of their teeth, but the scared looks in those kids' eyes lingered from that night. Not far away, in Skagit County, rescue teams waded chest deep, moving slowly through the churning flood to pull people from danger. Broken pieces of homes, trees, and vehicles floated around, crashing in the boiling water. Children's cries mixed with helicopter engines, creating a scene that was both fierce and heartbreaking, where lives were held on by split-second choices. Psalm 69:1-2 once cried out, "Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in the miry depths, where there is no foothold. I have come into the deep waters. The floods engulf me." Those words seemed rewritten in the images of people struggling in the flood, where water didn't just reach their feet, but threatened to swallow their very souls. Rescue experts and weather forecasters later warned that the dangerous conditions weren't over. Saturated soil raised the risk of landslides and secondary levee breaks, while river levels stayed at alert stages in many places. Technology, experience, and teamwork saved many lives, but even they admitted there are times when people can only react, not control. Jeremiah 18:7-8 says, "If at any time I announce that a nation or kingdom is to be uprooted, torn down, and destroyed, and if that nation turns from its wickedness, then I will relent and not inflict on it the disaster I had planned." In this situation, many saw the rescues as a pause of mercy, a chance given amid the destruction, so people could look back and change before it was too late. Still, the painful questions kept coming. Some said the rescue efforts show we can stand up to natural disasters with science and technology. Others were more downbeat, seeing it as punishment for living careless about the environment and morals. Especially, the question, "Why do kids have to suffer?" left many speechless, because no answer eases that kind of pain. In that bitterness, pictures of children lifted onto helicopters, wrapped in blankets in strangers' arms, became symbols of both fragility and hope. Maybe it's in our weakest spots that we realize what we need most. And maybe in moments like these, faith stops being just an idea and becomes the last thing to hold on to when everything else falls apart. Weather experts kept issuing warnings. Rain might ease up, but the aftermath would drag on for days, even weeks. Weakened infrastructure, polluted water, and risks of more incidents lingered. These alerts weren't just for officials, but for all of us living on land that seems solid. Here, among the numbers and reports, what stands out most is the tears. Tears from those who lost homes, from parents holding scared kids, from exhausted rescuers after hours without rest. And in that moment, it's hard not to ask, what we'll carry from this flood? Just painful memories or a deeper wake-up call? The rescues show mercy is still there, but they don't erase the fact that without change, similar losses will happen again. The waters may recede, but questions about the future hang over every riverside neighborhood. And as children just pulled to safety looked around, in another spot, a house started drifting from its foundation, slowly but unstoppable. That sight whispered a chilling thought. Is this just the end of one terrifying night, or the opening notes of something louder waiting ahead? System collapse, infrastructure breaking down, and time running out. In less than 72 hours, more than 40 major roads in King County and Pierce County were completely closed. Nearly 180,000 homes lost power, and early damage estimates topped $1.2 billion. Those cold numbers aren't just stats. They're the heartbeat of a system that's falling apart. Have you ever wondered, if all the roads disappeared at once, where would people go? The temporary levees on the White River and Green River, strengthened after the flood back in '08, couldn't hold against water that was 170% over the design limit. One weak spot gave way, and the whole defense network collapsed like dominoes. When the water started rising, no alarm was fast enough. No plan was big enough. King County sank into chaos as city growth squeezed rivers narrower and concrete covered the ground, so it couldn't soak up water anymore. Heavy rain for days, mixed with snowmelt from the Cascades, pushed the Skykomish, Stehekin, and Snoqualmie rivers to historic highs. Dozens of miles of I-90 and SR 167 were cut off like blocked arteries. According to the Washington Department of Transportation report, over 300 landslides happened in 48 hours, destroying temporary bridges, washing away access roads, and isolating many towns. Experts admit the current infrastructure was built for an old climate world, not what's happening right now. Do you still believe we're in full control of everything? In Snoqualmie Valley, it spread like a shock to the community. A whole house, still intact, lifted up by the current and floated away slowly, like some lifeless thing. It didn't explode or break apart, it just vanished. That image chills you to the bone because it shows power that doesn't even need to roar. Isaiah 24-19:20 once said, "The earth reels like a drunkard. It sways like a hut in the wind. Its rebellion weighs it down, and it falls, never to rise again." Those broken levees, those shattered roads, it's no different from the ground, swaying, just like the warning foretold. In Mount Vernon, captured from a high-rise parking lot, pickup trucks flooded up to the roof, water nearly 10 feet deep, carrying trash bins, power poles, pieces of rooftops. What used to be city order now torn apart, floating in the muddy flow like remnants of a fragile civilization. According to hydrologists, the flow speed jumped 2.3 times the average, so structures couldn't react in time. The drainage systems were completely overloaded. Pump stations stopped from power loss. When one system depends on another, just one link breaking brings the whole thing down. A lot of folks still argue this is just the result of climate change, bad planning, not enough investment in infrastructure. But there are shaky voices asking something else. Why did everything collapse at the exact same moment? Is this more than a technical failure? Maybe a deeper wake-up call? 2 Peter 3:10 warns, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a roar. The elements will be destroyed by fire, and the earth and everything done in it will be laid bare." Not to scare anyone, but to remind us that time never gives notice. Engineers admit to upgrade the whole levee and road system now would take at least 20 to 30 years and tens of billions of dollars. But disasters don't wait for budgets, and floodwaters don't care about long-term plans. When reality outpaces our ability to fix it, all we're left with is reacting. In many areas, people were cut off for over 48 hours with no power, no clean water, no phone signal. Emergency calls got cut off, rescue map markers shifted from yellow to red. In that silence, despair spread faster than the water. Psalm 46:2-3 once said, "Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam." But honestly, when roads vanish, power grids go dark, how long can people's faith hold up? Officials call for calm and trust in engineering solutions, while other voices insist no concrete wall can stand if we keep ignoring moral and spiritual warnings. That debate goes on right alongside the rising water. The collapse of infrastructure isn't just material loss, it's the breaking of our sense of safety. When the familiar road is gone, when the bridge you cross every day disappears, you realize how small we are against forces beyond control. Isaiah 30:12-1-3 warns, "Because you despise this word, therefore this iniquity shall be to you like a breach in a high wall, bulging out and about to collapse. Its breaking comes suddenly, in an instant. Those cracks in the system have been there a long time, and now one touch makes it all burst." The ending isn't a full stop. It's a push to act. When systems break down, when time slips away hour by hour, the question isn't who's to blame anymore, but will people wake up or keep sleeping? Where do you think you stand on that question? And when the last road gives way, A strange whirlpool appears in the raging river, deep and dark like an open abyss. Is that just a natural thing, or the door to a bigger disaster waiting ahead? Strange things caught on camera during the floods. It wasn't thunder, and it wasn't the wind howling. It was this odd movement on the water that made folks freeze in place. Amid the non-stop rain in Skagit and Snohomish counties, the river suddenly started swirling like some invisible hand was stirring it up. Was this just a fluke? Or maybe a quiet message from above that we haven't stopped to hear yet? In Sumas and around Snohomish, the rain poured down heavy for hours on end, and the water rose slow but steady, like it was waiting for the right moment to let loose. The Nisqually and Skokomish rivers hit moderate flood stage. Hundreds of cars got swamped past their wheels, and people panicked as they left their homes in the dark of night. Can you feel that unease creeping in during moments like those? When a flashlight beam swept over the murky water, those swirls started forming. Slow at first, but powerful. The water churned and spun, pulling everything down like a bottomless pit. No explosion, no warning, just a chill down your spine from seeing something you can't explain with your own eyes. One story spread fast. Near Snoqualmie, someone recorded the water rising chest high, with a whirlpool appearing right in the middle of a familiar road. People stood frozen, not daring to step forward or turn back, like they were afraid of disturbing some force hiding under the surface. What would you do if you were facing that? Luke 21:25-26 warned, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. People will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken." The roaring of the sea and waves these days doesn't feel so far off anymore. In Renton, it kept folks up all night. A public bus was moving along when water suddenly flooded the inside. Passengers yelled and grabbed the handrails as the water rose to their ankles, then knees. In that moment, nobody cared about schedules or stops, just the raw fear of the water's power. The water didn't rush in loud. It slipped in quiet, like an old intruder. It seeped through every door, crack, and step, covering the bus floor in minutes. Many said later they felt surrounded, like their last safe spot was taken away. Do you believe the biggest fears often come without a sound? Experts say whirlpools can form when strong currents hit obstacles, mixed with the terrain and unusual rainfall. But even they admit how often and how strong these things are happening now goes beyond what they can predict. When science has to say, maybe, people start looking elsewhere for meaning. Exodus 14:21 tells, "Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind all night, making the sea dry land, and the waters were divided." It's the same water, the same power, but one time it opened a path to save, another it rises like judgment. Maybe the difference is in people's hearts? During the storm, many shared hard-to-explain moments. Clocks stopping when a whirlpool showed up, a ringing in the ears like pressure changing, time feeling like it slowed down. Those details aren't in official reports, but they keep coming up in eyewitness stories. Do you think it's just panic or a sign of something deeper? Some say it's all natural, and tying it to the supernatural is unscientific. But others tremble and ask, why do these signs show up right when people are at their most proud, most careless about limits? The two sides clash, and the debate goes on without an end. Psalm 107:28-29 says, "Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed." That promise is still there, but it's for those who know how to cry out. The question is, does humanity still know how? In Sumas, as the whirlpool faded, the river went flat and calm in a scary way. That quiet didn't bring peace. It felt like the pause before something bigger. Many stood watching the water, silent, like they'd missed a chance to understand something important. Some found hope right in that fear. They say if this is a wake-up call, there's still time to repent, to turn back, to change course. The fear isn't the enemy anymore. It opens the door to humility we've long lost. Nahum 1-3 reminds, "The Lord is slow to anger, but great in power. The Lord will not leave the guilty unpunished." That power doesn't show off. One swirling current is enough to remind us how small we are. The final point isn't explaining what the whirlpools are, but how people choose to respond. If we call it just bad luck, it'll soon be forgotten. But if we see it as a reminder, then each of us faces questions about faith, responsibility, and staying alert. And when the last whirlpool vanished, a few described a strange sound like a trumpet echoing far off in the wind and rain. Nobody's sure what they heard, but the unease hung in the air. Will humanity listen in time, before the next rush of water sweeps everything away? The final warning. From floods to the end times, repent or face destruction. If this isn't a warning, then what more does humanity need to wake up? When floodwaters rose all at once across western Washington, from Pacific to Mount Vernon, the sound of it was like a trumpet blasting in the dead of night. And in that moment, we have to ask ourselves, are we truly ready? Or are we still asleep in some false sense of security? The whole area turned into a scene of chaos like nothing seen in years. Rivers overflowed their banks one after another. Levees weakened. Roads got cut off. Power went out in neighborhoods. Thousands lost their homes after just a few days of rain. Over 600 rescues were reported, and many communities ended up completely cut off in a sea of water. What happened didn't come on slow. It hit fast, like dominoes falling one after another. No sooner had rescuers pulled one family off a rooftop than a levee broke somewhere else. The water hadn't even started receding before mud, trash, and people's lifelong memories got buried in silence. We're seeing just how fragile the order we thought was solid really is. Romans 13:11 puts it clear. You know what time it is. It's time to wake up from sleep, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. Waking up isn't just opening our eyes to the disaster. It's understanding what it means. When time is running short, putting things off becomes a dangerous choice. Water is starting to go down in some spots, but what's left behind is scarier than when it was rising. Homes cracked open, cars flipped over, foundations washed away, and roads that used to be busy, now just endless streaks of mud. In Auburn, folks came back to clean up quietly, hoping to rebuild while worrying it could all happen again anytime. The stories from earlier parts now come together on one point. Nobody dares say they control the future anymore. A dad carrying his kid through rushing water, rescue teams racing the clock, mysterious swirls appearing and vanishing, all pieces of a bigger message. And that message isn't comfortable, but it's plain. 2 Timothy 3:1-2 warns, "But know this, in the last days there will be tough times. People will be selfish, greedy, boastful, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy." When society cracks from the inside, nature outside can't hold steady either. In the middle of all this, experts keep warning about climate change, outdated infrastructure, mistakes piled up over decades. They say if we don't change how we live and build, floods like this will come back worse and more often. But the question is, are technical fixes enough when the root problem goes deeper? On the other side, plenty of folks believe this isn't just an environmental crisis. It's a spiritual wake-up call. They say when people put themselves at the center and ignore limits, the created order has to speak up. These two views clash hard, and each side thinks they hold the truth. Where do you stand in this debate? Revelation 3:3 reminds us, "Remember what you've received and heard. Hold it fast and repent. If you don't wake up, I'll come like a thief, and you won't know when." That warning isn't loud, but it's decisive. It's not about whether the Lord will come. It's whether we'll wake up in time. Some look around gloomily and say the world's sliding downhill with no brakes, that what we're seeing is just the start of unstoppable destruction. But others see in the disaster a chance for renewal, a moment to pause, look back, and fix things before it's too late. Two paths lie open side by side, and humanity has to choose. One thing's for sure, time isn't on the side of indifference. Every flood, every cry for help, every home collapsing is a reminder that the clock keeps ticking down. Nobody knows the final number, but we all feel the beat speeding up. The last word here isn't to spread fear, it's to face the truth. These floods aren't random, they're signs, warnings, a final chance for people to choose between repentance and destruction. Hope is still there, but it won't last without real change. And as the echo of what sounds like the first trumpet still lingers in our memories, one question hangs over all of us. If the second trumpet sounds, will we be ready to step through, awake, or get swept away forever in the waters of judgment? When I look back on the whole journey we've just been through, from the dikes breaking in the dark of night, the raging floodwaters rising, to the cries during rescues and those eerie signs that showed up in the storm, it doesn't feel like scattered news stories anymore. They all connect into one big picture, where nature, people, and faith come together in a moment full of warning. It's a story not just about flooding, but about waking up. The Bible has painted that picture for a long time. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. There's a time for peace, and there's a time for trials." What happens doesn't go outside of God's permission, but it always carries a deeper purpose beyond just the destruction we see. Through it all, people show up with every kind of emotion: panic, helplessness, arguments, and then that fragile hope. In the middle of all that chaos, what lasts isn't houses or possessions, it's the question about our hearts. Matthew 24:12 warns, "Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold." But right in those cold moments, true love and faith get a chance to wake up. The floodwaters will go down eventually. The mud will get cleaned up, but the message shouldn't get buried. It's a call to turn back, to repent and pray, not out of blind fear, but with humility and clear eyes. James 4:8 says, "Come near to God, and He will come near to you." When we take one step toward Him, His grace is always waiting. In the Bible's bigger picture, every upheaval points to one thing: getting our hearts ready. Nobody knows what tomorrow will bring, but we can all choose to live today with prayer, love, and spreading what's good. When we plant peace, we're also asking for protection for ourselves and our families in a world that's getting more unsteady. If you're reading these last lines, take a quiet moment. Leave a prayer in the comments, a thought, or just something simple from your heart. Who knows? That prayer might be the thread connecting you to others looking for the same peace. And if these messages touch you, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any reminders in the next videos. Every share isn't just support, it's a way to spread light in times that feel pretty dark. Thank you for staying until the very end. May God give you and your family peace, shield you from whatever chaos tomorrow brings, and keep your faith strong no matter what. Amen. Is this just a bunch of random events? Or is it the final wake-up call ringing for all of us? When the world starts roaring, the sky turns dark, the ground cracks open, the oceans rage, and animals go completely wild, we can't ignore the feeling that something big is waking up. Nature isn't quiet anymore. It's shaking, erupting, swallowing everything, like the earth itself is fighting back. From mountains suddenly blowing up, strange clouds crawling down like they're alive, floods dragging everything away in the night, to animals gathering in ways we've never seen. 7 events, 7 pieces of the puzzle hitting us fast, with no warning and no full explanation. Have you seen those videos yet? Do you really believe it's all just coincidence? Or behind all that chaos is an ancient whisper, a warning that's been written down long ago? If this isn't random, then the scariest question is, what stage of the story are we in right now? And what's waiting ahead once we figure out these signs that we'll decode right after this? So don't miss a thing, okay? And I won't keep you waiting long, because right now we're going to start with 1. A volcano in the Philippines suddenly explodes. In just a moment, what used to be a peaceful scene turned into pure hell right before our eyes. A mountain that seemed to be sleeping quietly suddenly roared, erupted, tore open the sky, and left that chilling feeling that nature isn't willing to stay silent anymore. And when you watch those videos, it hits you hard. This isn't just another news story. It's one of those moments that makes folks stop and face how fragile life really is. That mountain is Taal Volcano, sitting in the middle of a big lake in Batangas Province, Philippines, only about 30 miles from the capital, Manila. In a split second, from what looked like a calm crater, Taal blew up fiercely, shooting black smoke and chunks of rock into the air like a giant hand reaching up from deep in the earth to grab the sky. The videos going around show the exact moment light vanished, the sun got blocked out, and everything around sank into a deadly gray. Geologists spoke up quick. They talked about the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates keep crashing into each other, and hundreds of small earthquakes happen every year. Local folks are used to that low rumbling under their feet, used to the constant unease. But this time was different. Pressure that had built up too long finally burst, forcing thousands to leave their homes by the lake and run in panic, with no one sure if the mountain was done erupting or just getting started. The black smoke column rose to 7,000 feet, carrying ash and hot rocks dozens of miles away, turning day into night. The blasts sounded like endless thunder. The ground shook hard. Birds scattered in chaos. Wild animals fled without direction. Looking at those pictures, it's not just amazing, it's downright eerie, like some ancient creature waking up after sleeping for thousands of years. The Bible, Luke 21:11, says, "There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven." And in Revelation, images of thunder, lightning, and earthquakes come up as a cold reminder. No explanations, no comfort, just a quiet question about what it all means. Of course, science calls this normal geological activity for a country with more than 20 active volcanoes. But when things happen more often, when the eruptions get fiercer and harder to predict, that normal starts to feel shaky. Because nature doesn't change randomly, and people can't stay out of the consequences. The mountain has woken up. And with the earth starting to roar like that, a bigger worry is quietly spreading. Will the sky stay quiet? Or are those strange clouds creeping down the real messengers of what's coming next? 2. A hiking and camping group unexpectedly spots a strange cloud. In what seems like ordinary footage from a mountain hike, there's one moment that makes you stop and stare, not because of any loud bang or fire, but because of the eerie quiet right before everything gets swallowed up. From up high, a thick white cloud suddenly comes pouring down, not drifting or fading away, but falling like a waterfall hanging between sky and earth. When you watch that video again, you can really feel it. That chill down your spine hits you before your brain even catches up. The spot is Mount Jefferson in Oregon, USA, a mountain that's 10,495 feet tall in the Cascade Range, known for strong winds and tough terrain. It's a place folks go to camp and breathe in that fresh air, figuring nature there is pretty gentle. But right there, the sky suddenly moves like it's alive, and this odd cloud starts creeping down the slope, completely shattering that fragile sense of safety. In the viral video, the dense cloud stretches hundreds of feet wide, moving slowly at about 5-10 miles an hour. But it carries this heavy feeling that's hard to shake. It covers everything in a cold mist, turning the mountain forest into a foggy maze with no way out. At first, there are a few excited cheers, but soon it goes quiet as the people there realize they're facing something that's not just regular weather. Looking back at those frames, you get why excitement can turn into unease in just seconds. The Bible has a warning that gives a lot of folks chills when you think about it next to this. Matthew 24-30 says, "Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven, with power and great glory." Those words aren't describing an ordinary cloud. It's a sign that makes everyone look up in fear and wake up. Still, some people call this a fog spill, a kind of fog overflow caused by foreign winds, something that's happened in the Jura Mountains in Switzerland or on Mount Washington in New Hampshire. Science says it's just differences in temperature and pressure, but arguments start when these things keep showing up more often, in far apart places, with shapes that are harder to predict. Some believe it's just nature, others see it as a sign, and plenty are starting to feel uneasy about how fast the sky is changing. No matter which side you're on, one thing's hard to deny. The sky isn't just something to look at anymore. It's sending these vague but heavy messages. That cloud didn't destroy anything or hurt anyone, but it covered everything, leaving people lost and forcing them to stop. And if a cloud can quietly swallow a whole mountain peak like that, it leaves you wondering, when the waters start rising, is there anything left that can hold strong? 3. Floodwaters, rising fast, sweeping away homes and cars. Cries of terror tore through the night. It wasn't the wind or thunder, but the desperate screams of a woman as the floodwaters rushed in like a wild beast let off its chain. In just minutes, the familiar street turned into a raging river. Homes shook, cars were lifted up, and everything got dragged away without mercy, leaving people standing helpless in pure fear. That was the Guadalupe River in Kerr County, Texas, in the United States. It's a river over 230 miles long, calm and gentle most of the time like a ribbon of silk, but with heavy rain from the hills, it can rise suddenly without warning. In recent floods, the water level shot up 26 feet in just hours, forcing thousands to drop everything and flee in the dark, carrying only their fear and hopeless prayers. The rushing water tore along at 20 to 30 miles an hour, dragging wooden homes hundreds of feet long like they were kids' toys. Cars flipped over, crashing into each other with the groan of twisting metal. Shouts echoed for a while, then faded under the roar of the water. In a disaster like that, there's no difference between rich and poor, strong or weak. Everyone seems small against the cold power of the flood. The Bible warned about times like this long ago. Luke 21:25 says clearly, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." It's not just a picture. It's that real feeling of chaos when people panic as nature gets out of control. Going further back, Genesis 7:11 describes a terrifying moment. All the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. Water didn't just come from rivers. It poured from everywhere, like the whole order of nature turned upside down. What we're seeing today makes many folks shiver when they think about those old words. Some say this is just climate change, a scientific thing with no tie to God. But experts admit it too. Floods are happening more often and getting stronger, turning yearly events into huge disasters that hit one after another like never before. That matchup makes a lot of people wonder, is it just chance or part of a warning that's been there all along? If the Bible once used water to cleanse the world, is God using it now to wake us up, to remind us that Judgment Day is getting closer? When everything you own can be swept away in one night, where do you put your trust? And if the flood takes it all, are those man-made walls hiding something even more awful that's waiting to come out? 4. An explorer discovered a strange spider web wall. In the video footage from his shaking headlamp, I see him stop in his tracks. Ahead of him isn't rock or a cave wall. It's this unbelievably thin wall that gives a little when he touches it, like one good push could go right through. But that very fragility makes the air feel ice cold, because something deep down tells you this thing shouldn't be broken. The spot is a sulfur cave near the Albania-Greece border, deep and dark, damp, stretching for miles into thick blackness. It's a place that usually draws only seasoned cave explorers, but now it's getting attention because they found that wall isn't stone, it's a massive spider web, covering about 1,140 square feet, woven from thousands of layers of silk stacked on top of each other. Reports say more than 111,000 spiders worked together to build this structure, turning thin silk into something downright scary and strong, solid enough that even a grown person gets shaky hands touching it. Spider silk is light and delicate on its own, but in huge numbers like this, it gets surprisingly tough, like a living skin wrapping the cave, used to catch swarms of young flies that thrive in the sulfur environment. Science explains it as adaptation to the surroundings. In harsh conditions, spiders that are usually loners have to team up, building big webs to make hunting easier and protect the group. It's a survival response, logical and measurable. But the question that gives a lot of folks the chills is still out there. Why did they gather on a scale never recorded before, like they were fleeing some unseen threat? The Bible offers another view. Revelation 9:3 says, "And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth." The picture of small creatures emerging from darkness, granted unusual power, leads many to believe animals will serve as warning signs in the end times. Science calls it instinct. Faith calls it a signal. One side relies on data and adaptation, the other on prophecy and symbolism. Two different explanations, but they meet at one thought-provoking point. Animals sense things that humans often realize too late. So what do you think? Is this just a rare biological event, or a quiet hint about what's coming? If God once used water, fire, and wind to warn mankind, is he now using creatures themselves to send a message? When spiders build their wall in the dark, could that be the last reflex before something bigger? And if deep in the ocean, other creatures are hiding within each other, what dark secret will be revealed next? 5. Strange creature found inside a fish's mouth. This story starts with a real shocker. At a quiet freshwater lake that seemed so peaceful, a fisherman was pulling in his last net of the day when he froze in place. Right in front of him wasn't just an unusually big fish, but inside its wide-open mouth was another creature, long and wriggling hard, like a second monster trapped inside the first one. It happened at a big freshwater lake inland, where the water can get dozens of feet deep and the ecosystem is pretty closed off. Folks around there say the lake has always been calm, mostly home to catfish and freshwater eels. Nobody expected something like this to come up from those still waters and shake up the whole community. The video shows a heavy fish with an oddly large body and a long eel, several feet, tucked right in its mouth, head sticking out, body twitching strong. The scary part is the eel was still alive, still fighting back, like it refused to get swallowed. How could a freshwater creature survive in a spot like that? That moment didn't just make people curious. It gave them a creepy feeling that's hard to shake, like watching nature's rules get bent. Biologists were quick to explain it. They think it might be a giant freshwater eel or a catfish that bit off more than it could chew, leading to this rare stuck prey situation. Some other ideas point to weird hunting behavior from changes in the environment. But even the experts admit the eel's size, how it stayed alive, and the way it was found are super rare in freshwater systems. The Bible once warned about creatures in the water that don't fit the usual order. Leviticus 11:10 says, "But all creatures in the seas or streams that do not have fins and scales, whether among all the swarming things or among all the other living creatures in the water, you are to regard as unclean." When you read that verse now, in light of this, It sounds like a strong warning, not just for the deep ocean, but even for waters that seem harmless. A lot of people push back on connecting it that way, saying it's just a rare biology thing blown up by human fear. They point out that freshwater lakes have their own secrets. No need to bring in anything spiritual. But others say when weird stuff like this starts showing up in the most familiar places, that's when the warnings hit home clearer. What do you think? Is it just a biological fluke, or something worth thinking deeper about? When even a freshwater lake, a symbol of life and nourishment, shows scary sights like this, we can't keep ignoring it. The Lord is letting hidden things come to the surface. And if the depths of a lake aren't peaceful anymore, then way down in the earth below, what's coiling up waiting to come out, like an even bigger nightmare ahead? 6. Dozens, even hundreds, of pitch-black snakes twisted together in a baffling way. The shocking start comes in just a few quick seconds. From a small hole in the forest floor, a man suddenly reaches down and pulls up a big, dark, wriggling mass. Dozens of snakes, all tangled tight like some giant, many-headed creature yanked out of the dark. That moment takes your breath away, because nobody expects the ground that looks so harmless to spit out something that creepy. This happened in a damp forest in Alabama, in the United States, where thick layers of leaves and soft soil hide all kinds of crawling creatures. The area is known for black racer snakes, long, fast, all-black ones that often hide in ground holes to stay out of the cold and hunt for food. But no one ever thought a little hole like that could hold a whole living knot twisting around like this. In the video, one snake after another comes up, each about 5 to 6 feet long, their bodies woven together, tails thrashing wildly, making a chaotic mess that gives you goosebumps. The bunch doesn't come apart. They stick together like some invisible force is holding them, fighting hard as they're pulled into the light. It's downright eerie, like someone just opened a tiny gate to a little piece of hell. The Bible mentions snakes many times as a warning sign. In Genesis 3:15 it says, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." And in Numbers 21:6, "Then the Lord sent venomous snakes among them. They bit the people, and many Israelites died." When you put those verses next to the sight of a bunch of snakes rising up from the earth, they sound like a direct warning about sin and punishment. Biologists were quick to explain that this is called a mating ball, a group mating behavior that happens when lots of males gather around one female during breeding season. They say the weather and wet conditions made an unusually large number crowd into the same hole. But even the scientists admit that a group this big and packed so tight is extremely rare, enough to give anyone who sees it the chills. Even if science can explain it, that image still feels like a strong warning. Snakes, an old symbol of the fall into sin, don't show up that thick and fierce by accident. It's as if God is using the ground itself to remind us that things buried away will one day come to light. And if one small hole can spit out a nightmare like that, what might be hiding in the quiet places around us, waiting for the next moment to burst out? 7. A huge column of water suddenly erupts into the sky, no warning at all. Out of a quiet little pond tucked against sandstone cliffs, a massive column of water shoots straight up, breaking the silence with a roar like thunder from deep underground. It leaves you stunned, because nobody expects something so powerful from such a small body of water, enough to shake the whole area. This happened at Crystal Geyser in Utah, USA, where the pond covers just a few acres, with a gravel bottom and dry cliffs all around. For years, the place was pretty much still, with only wind and sun passing through quietly. But in just seconds, the surface cracks open, and water blasts upward like the Earth's own pressure finally letting go. The video shows the water shooting way above the frame, probably 100 to 150 feet high, with a loud rumble echoing off the cliffs and carrying for miles. The spray swirls white and thick, steam rising in clouds, making it look almost magical and hard to believe. People watching cheer in excitement but step back a little scared, like the planet itself is gasping and crying out. In Revelation 21:1, it says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more." When you think about that verse next to this exploding water column, some folks believe it's more than just nature. It's a final warning about big changes coming, where everything familiar won't stay the same. Scientists explain it as a cold geyser caused by CO2 gas building up underground, creating pressure that pushes the water out now and then. To them, it's a rare but understandable physical process. Still, what bothers a lot of people is why these kinds of events seem to happen more often now, even in places thought to be calm and steady. Some say it's just coincidence, and modern science has it all figured out. Others see a deeper message, that the earth is being shaken to remind us to look beyond numbers and models. Where do you stand on that? Seeing water burst from the ground like a trumpet blast. This event doesn't just amaze, it stirs up faith in those open to it. Water, a symbol of life and cleansing, exploding in dry land, reminds us that renewal often comes with upheaval. With 7 signs now showing up, the pieces fit together, and it's no longer random. It's a serious wake-up call, urging us to pause, reflect, and get our hearts ready for what's coming soon. So, we've just gone through 7 events full of the Lord's warnings about the end times. Which one made you stop and think the most? Let us know in the comments below. 7 phenomena, 7 pieces of the puzzle. When you put them side by side, they're no longer just random videos scrolling by on social media. They start connecting, building on each other, and pressing in like a map that's slowly coming into focus. The ground shakes, the sky goes dark, the waters rage, animals panic, the deep sea reveals strange things, the earth spews out nightmares, and finally, springs of water burst open like life's veins being torn apart. Nothing stays still. No place feels completely safe anymore. The volcano erupting is the first big blow to whatever steady ground we thought we had. The earth, something we figured we'd tamed, shakes, spits fire and ash, and reminds us we're just living on a thin crust. When the ground starts fighting back, it's not just geology, it's the first wake-up call. Then the sky answers. Clouds don't drift anymore. They crawl down and swallow mountaintops like they're alive. The sky isn't the familiar shelter it used to be. It turns into a curtain that blurs what we see and what we believe. When people look up and can't see clearly, that's when direction starts slipping away. Water doesn't flow gently like it once did. Floods rise, sweep away homes, cars, everything, wiping out lines between rich and poor, status or power. Water, the symbol of life, becomes a destroyer, drowning cries and pleas in the dark. When water turns angry, we realize we're all equal in helplessness. Animals aren't acting normal either. Spiders, usually loners, team up to build huge webs, like they're fleeing something invisible. Fish and eels twist together in horrible knots, showing chaos under the water. Snakes coil into thick black masses, rising from the ground like old memories waking up. When animals change their ways, it's often a sign that humans only understand later. And then, even the quietest springs explode. A column of water shoots straight up, breaking years of silence. No more trickling, no more seeping, just erupting like a final statement. The source of life itself won't stay quiet anymore. When you string them together, all 4 basic elements of creation are shaken. Earth trembling, sky darkened, water raging, living things deformed. It's not separate pieces. It's a chain that builds, just like the Bible describes the last days, starting mild, then piling on, then unstoppable. Matthew 24:7-8 warned about this long ago. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. The scariest part isn't the disasters. It's that last line, they're only the beginning. Luke 21:11 fills in more of the picture. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places. and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. Fearful events, great signs. Not everything fits neatly into charts or formulas, because the Bible said ahead of time there'd be things beyond what we're used to. And when these things reach their peak, Revelation paints a scene with nowhere to hide. Revelation 16:18-20 says, "Then there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth. So tremendous was the quake. The great city split into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations collapsed. Every island fled away, and the mountains could not be found." It's not just shaking. The whole old order falls apart. This big picture isn't here to feed curiosity. It's meant to weigh on the conscience. Nature doesn't rage for no reason. In the Bible, it's often a mirror of how humanity is doing morally. When people ignore justice, choke the truth, and worship power, creation groans in their place. The urgency doesn't come from the telling. It comes from the pace of the events themselves. They're happening more often, stranger, harder to brush off. Time isn't moving slow anymore. The gaps between signs are getting shorter, like drumbeats speeding up before the final charge. These 7 phenomena aren't meant to spread blind fear. They're to make us stop and see the whole picture. As the end-time scene takes shape, the question isn't, "Is this real?" anymore. It's, "Where will I stand when it's finished?" In the Bible, signs always come with a call, not to panic, but to stay alert, not to run away, but to repent, change, and turn back. When time feels squeezed, every choice matters more. Every indifference gets riskier. If these really are pieces of the last days, the most urgent thing isn't explaining them. It's getting the heart ready, because once the picture is complete, there won't be time to ask why. There'll only be one question left: did we listen or not? Under everything we've just seen, please remember one key thing. These signs aren't random at all. They're not just scattered events from history or meaningless troubles. They're repeated warnings from God, getting clearer and louder as time runs short. The Bible mentions this in Matthew 24:6-8. "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. All these things are just the beginning of birth pains." The world is falling apart bit by bit, not only in how society is breaking down, but deep in people's hearts too. Darkness is quietly, but cruelly, swallowing up humanity through lies, indifference, violence, and turning away from the truth. The Bible warns about this in 2 Timothy 3:1. 2. In the last days, there will be very difficult times, because people will love only themselves and their money, be boastful and proud. Those words aren't just sitting in an old book anymore. They're playing out right in front of us every day. But even in that dark picture, there's still a flicker of hope. God doesn't warn us to destroy us. He does it to save us. He's calling people to wake up before it's too late, to turn back to Him with repentance and faith. Ezekiel 18:23 says, "Do I take any pleasure in the death of the wicked? Declares the sovereign Lord. No, I want them to turn from their ways and live." The door to His grace is still open, but nobody knows when it will close. The end times are closer than we think, not to scare us, but to make each of us ask, "Where do I stand with God?" Revelation 3:20 puts it plainly, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in." In this chaotic world, the only sure place to turn is faith in Jesus Christ. He's the solid refuge, the lifesaver in the middle of this raging storm. So please, don't just scroll past these signs like some shocking news story and then forget about it. Stop for a moment, take it in, and pray. Ask yourself if you're truly ready, if you've really turned back to the Lord, or if you're still putting it off. Like Amos 4:12 warns, Israel, prepare to meet your God. That call today isn't just for one nation, it's for all of us. If this touches you, leave a prayer down in the comments, or just share your honest thoughts about what's happening. Don't keep it to yourself. You never know. Your words might wake up another soul. And if you don't want to miss the powerful warnings in the next videos, please like, share, and subscribe so we can stay alert together in these last days. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and may the Lord bring His light to each of us in these dark times.
Oh my gosh!
Have you ever wondered what would happen if the world didn't wait until New Year's to fall apart? In just a few short days, right before Christmas, the planet got hit hard. An explosion ripped through a European highway. A nursing home in America went up in flames. An Asian market burned to ashes. An entertainment icon caught fire. Shots rang out in a government building. Millions of believers poured into the streets, and police cracked down on crowds right in the heart of Europe. 7 events, 7 blows in a row. No breaks in between. Do you feel like time is getting squeezed? Are you sure these are just random news stories? Or is it a pattern that's being set up? If chaos is speeding up right before the holy season, what's waiting ahead? Don't jump to conclusions, because pretty soon, all the pieces will start coming together. So don't miss a single bit of information. Okay. And I won't keep you waiting long. We'll dive deep together into the hidden truths behind these chaotic events. Let's get started with 1. Horrifying tanker explosion in Caserta, Italy. Sky lights up in flames. Everything shakes. Boom! The screen shakes hard. And right at the start of this viral video, the whole sky ahead gets ripped open by a huge fireball. Did you hear that instinctive yell? I wasn't there, but watching those shaky frames, it feels like I'm standing right on the A1 highway when hell suddenly breaks loose in broad daylight. The video was shot from a car a few hundred yards from the scene. It shows traffic moving along, then everything stops dead. A quick crash, the LPG tanker flips over, and just seconds later, a bright white flash hits before a massive column of fire swallows the road. Did you notice how eerily quiet it is for a moment before the blast roars like thunder right through the screen? Thick black smoke rolls up, blanketing the sky for miles around. The camera pans fast, showing the concrete roadway torn apart. Part of the overpass ahead collapsed, cars left in the lanes like tossed-aside toys. Hundreds of drivers stuck. The A1 toward Rome shut down completely for hours, and the whole Caserta area filled with that strong gas smell. No deaths reported, but that strange everyone's okay part actually gives a lot of folks the chills. After hours of closure, Italian police and firefighters announced the early findings. The LPG tanker had a head-on sideswipe with a heavy truck that lost control, causing a gas leak. Even a tiny spark from metal scraping was enough to set off the chain reaction blast. Strong winds in the area made the fire spread faster than expected, collapsing part of the overpass structure and burning up the road below. Everything, according to the report, can be explained by engineering and physics, but watching that video again around this Christmas season, many people pause and think, the Bible mentions signs like this in Luke 21:11. There will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. And in Matthew 24:7, nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. These words don't prove anything, but they plant an uncomfortable question in your mind. Is it all just coincidence? The video ends in black smoke and sirens blaring non-stop, but that uneasy feeling doesn't stop there. If one sudden explosion can turn a major European highway into rubble in seconds, what happens when similar things show up somewhere else? And when we turn to stories here in America, will the next one give us enough time to brace ourselves? 2. Horrific explosion at nursing home in Bristol, Pennsylvania. Fierce flames swallow everything, many dead and injured. On the morning of December 23rd, while many families were still getting ready for a peaceful end-of-year holiday, a gas explosion ripped through the Silver Lake Healthcare Center nursing home in Bristol, Pennsylvania. No warning, no time to react, just a sharp blast that turned what was supposed to be a safe haven for the elderly into a pile of rubble, leaving at least 2 people dead and dozens more hurt in the chaos. Bristol is a small town along the Delaware River, less than 20 miles from Philadelphia, where life usually moves at a slow, familiar pace. But that morning, in the cold below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, leaking gas from the heating system had quietly built up inside the 2-story building. When the explosion hit, the back section, nearly 30 feet high, collapsed completely. Flames shot up fiercely, engulfing the living areas of more than 100 elderly residents, the most vulnerable folks in our society. The sound of the blast echoed more than 2 miles away, making nearby residents think a bomb had gone off. Over 50 ambulances, along with helicopters and rescue teams from Bucks County, rushed to the scene in harsh conditions. Search dogs and sonar equipment were brought in to look under the rubble piled meters thick. 21 people were pulled out alive, including 5 in critical condition from severe burns and serious injuries. We look at those numbers and realize that behind them are lives turned upside down in just a few short seconds. Pennsylvania officials said the initial cause was a gas leak combined with an old heating system, leading to an uncontrollable explosion. Governor Josh Shapiro, who was at the scene, called it a Christmas tragedy, as thick black smoke covered an area nearly a square mile wide, and hundreds of nearby homes had to be evacuated. For many of us, that sight isn't just an accident, it's a direct hit to our sense of safety, which was already pretty fragile. The Bible has warned about times like this. In Luke 21, verses 25 through 26, it says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity. People will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world." And Revelation 16:18 makes it clear. Then there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth. So tremendous was the quake. These words ring out like a warning bell, not to blame anyone, but to remind us. Of course, many people say this is just the result of poor maintenance and rundown infrastructure. But the fact that this tragedy happened right before Christmas and struck the weakest among us means the debate can't be wrapped up that easily. Is this really just a technical failure, or a reminder that chaos is creeping into even the places we thought were safest? The event in Bristol isn't just sad news. It's a clear warning. When order starts to crack, no one is left untouched. And if America is already burning like this, then what waits on the other side of the ocean might leave us speechless in ways we can't even imagine. 3. Terrible fire at Pasar Pagi Pemalang, Central Java, Indonesia. Hundreds of stalls burned down. Chaos in the middle of the night. The video starts with scenes that feel so familiar from everyday life. Pasar Pagi Pemalang in Central Java, Indonesia. The place where every afternoon folks are busy buying and selling, getting ready for the end-of-year holidays. Clothing stalls packed close together, warm yellow lights shining on rolls of fabric, the air noisy but normal in a way that no one would guess. Just minutes later, everything would change completely. From what's shown in the video and local reports, around 5:30 inches the evening on December 2-3 local time, a big fire suddenly broke out in the clothing section of the market. The flames started at one small stall, but they quickly got out of control. Strong winds blowing through the area turned flammable things like cloth, wood, and plastic into fuel, spreading the fire at maybe 10 feet per second. Pictures from the scene show flames shooting up as high as 40 feet, covering nearly 2 acres of the market. Shouts rang out through thick black smoke as vendors panicked and ran for safety, trying to grab whatever they could save. More than 30 fire trucks from the Semarang area were rushed in, and it took almost 3 hours to get the fire under control. The damage was really bad. Over 200 stalls were completely burned, with losses estimated at around $5 million. Luckily, no one died, but dozens of people got burns or smoke inhalation, and many ended up in the hospital, worn out.